Today we will see the difference between a static variable and instance variable. Okay, so as you notice in this class customer, there are two variables. First is string name and second is integer total customers. But I have marked this total customer as static. Now, when to use a static variable and when not to, that we are going to see in today's lecture. All right. To start with, we have a very simple class customer that has a string name. Okay, and every time this constructor is called when we create a new object of the customer, what we are doing is we are passing a name of the customer and we are assigning that name to the current object. So above in the main method, you can see that I am creating three customer objects with different names. We are simply printing their name on the console. That is fine. Apart from this, what I need is I want to know at any given point how many customer objects we have created so far. In order to achieve that, I am creating a variable of type integer and naming it as total customers. Whenever a new object is created, like for example customer 3 is equal to new customer Smith, at that time I am incrementing this total customer numbers by 1. Alright, so what happens is when customer first object is created, the count should be 1. Here count should be 2, and after this point count of the customer object should be 3. To get the current customer number, I am creating a method print total customer that is simply printing the current total customers number on the screen. Okay, so after creating three objects, if I call the third customer object c3 dot print total customer, I am expecting it to print 3 because so far we are creating three objects. Okay, so let's see when I run this what happens. Okay, so it is printing the three names of the customer and at the end it is printing total number of customer is 1. Oh, this is not how it should work, right? So my actual count was never incremented. So what happened? Let's put a debugger point and let's see what happens. So let's see here. Now if I run it again, here I have created successfully the first object. Okay, so if I go and see under this C1 object, it is showing me that its C1's name is John and total customers is 1. Okay, so if I go to the next step, here in the C2, if you see, it is showing the name Mark, but total customer is again 1. Now, why it is working like that? And I'm sure that after C3 also, the customer number will not increase. Let's check. That's right. The name is changing for every customer and it is working in the way it should. But our need was the total customer number should increment and should be consistently shown regardless of on what object I am calling it, right? So let's put it on a break. Okay, now it means that the total customer numbers we are using is instance variable. It means that every instance C1, C2 and C3 will have its own copy of value. So it will have its own name and own total customer number. So I want something that all three instances or any other coming instances should be sharing. Okay, so whenever you want a variable that whose value should be shared among all the instances, then you should mark that as a static. Static means not changing as per for every instance. All right. Okay. So now let's see what happens. If I run the program again, it is printing all the names and now it is showing total number of customer is 3. Okay, that is because we marked that total customers integer as a static field. Okay, so regardless of how many objects you create, all those objects or instances will share the same value for this variable, and they will have a different set of values for the variables which are non-statics, because those are instance variables. Okay, so there are two types of variables. The variables which are non-static, those are called as an instance variable, because every instance will have its own copy of value. Because for example, customer C1 has a name value John, C2 has a Mark, and C3 has a Smith. But as I marked this total customer as a static, every object or instance, let it be C1, C2 or C3, will share the same value at a current moment. Okay, so after the C3 object was created, inside the customer, the total customer value was 3. So if whatever object you use to call this method, it is going to give you the current static value. So for example, now let me create one more customer. Let's mark it as a C4. All right, then as we have the static variable inside the constructor, it should get the total customers count now as a 4, and it should print accordingly. That's right, it is now working. Thank you. Now you know the difference between a static variable and a non-static variable.